Hi guys. So I want to explain to you a little bit about the body language zones. So when you introduce the concept to them, tell them the first area that we always look at is the area below the belt. And this zone all the way to the ground is known as the power zone. So why is this called the power zone? Because very powerful speakers have learned how to keep their legs firmly planted onto the ground. So if I were to come and push you, I shouldn't be able to topple over. I should be able to remain steady. So the first idea that we want to share with the participants is to establish a firm footing on the leg. Secondly, whenever your hands go down into the power zone, you also tend to have a lot more strength in the way in which you're presenting. So tell them that every time they want to create the power in their presentation, it comes from the lower half of their body. They have to be firm, they have to be balanced in their weight, and instead of standing on one leg. So a question that you can ask the group is, so guys, can we stand on one leg? And the answer is, it depends. Because if I stand on one leg, what I'm projecting is a little bit more relaxedness, I'm more casual in the way in which I am presenting to the audience. But if I want my audience to take me more seriously, if you're doing more formal presentation, it's more useful to keep your legs at shoulder width apart and establish this. And throughout your presentation, you have to also demonstrate that aspect to them. So secondly, moving from the belt area all the way to the neck area, we call this the heart zone. Now the heart zone is a very wide space, and there are a lot of things you can do with it. So one thing you can do with the class is to get them to just feel the space that they have within the heart zone itself. And in the heart zone, you can do a few things. The first thing you want to do is normally when people speak, this is where their hands are. And so you can show them a negative example where people don't use their hands much when they're speaking. So do a demonstration of communicating to them without the hands, and then show them that when the hands come into action, it seems to be engaging the participants or the audience a little bit better. So when your hands are at your body level, make sure that it is slightly away. Because some speakers tend to keep it too close to them, and when they speak it this way. And this tends to create a very constricted feeling. So when you relax it, it becomes, for the audience, easier to listen to what you're saying rather than to have this tension inside of them. Unless you really want to create the tension and keep your hands really close to yourself, it's good to open up. Now the second thing you want to bring to them is the gestures, and there are two types of gestures. The first one is known as firm gestures. So the firm gesture, the palm is flat and the hand always moves in angles, right? And it's always very useful to use this kind of a gesture when you're talking about concrete ideas and concrete subjects, when you want to present some facts to the audience, when you want to have more assertiveness in the way you're presenting, it's useful to have the firm hand gesture. So you can get them to play around with this. One thing to note is that we then move from the wrist level. We always move from the elbow level. If not, we move from the shoulder level when you're presenting. So I give a demonstration of moving from the wrist. So when you're moving from the wrist, the movement is too small, plus it tends to create this sense of weakness. But when you're moving from the elbow, it seems to have a lot more concreteness in the way in which you're presenting your idea. If your audience is much larger, then you want to use the whole shoulder when you're speaking. So a lot of debaters tend to use this kind of a gesture. This is known as firm hand gesture. Now the second one, you can ask them to imagine as if they're holding on to something spherical. So the hand will normally become curved. Instead of the flat, it becomes more curved. It's more relaxed. The same principle applies where we do not move the wrist. We always move from the elbow level, or we move the entire shoulder. But this time, instead of moving in sharp straight lines and angles, we want to be moving in more curvy movements. So get them to play around a little bit, and you can even joke with them about a little bit about Tai Chi. The key idea is when you want to become more endearing to the audience, when you want there to be warmth, you want the audience to feel more connected to you, then you want to use more curved hand gestures. So I'm going to show you a slight side profile of this. So demonstration would be the firm hand gestures. Do you notice? The firm hand gesture is a lot more aggressive in the way it is. This is from the elbow level, and this is from the entire shoulder level of movement. Versus the curved gesture, which tends to be more sort of like, let me share with you what I'm saying. So from your presentation, one of the key takeaways for the students in the heart zone is they must be very clear, are they presenting facts, or do they want to persuade the audience a little bit better using the emotional part of it, which is why I call this the heart zone. And finally, the idea zone is anything between the neck area and all the way up to the ceiling. So get them to play with this space a little bit more. Now, what I tend to share with a lot of participants is a lot of speakers, they tend to use this zone called the heart zone, and even that, they do it very ineffectively. A few do use the power zone a little bit more when they're presenting, pointing to the floor, and this creates more strength. But very few of them do use the idea zone, effectively. So when you use the idea zone, if you look at a cartoon, whenever the character has an idea, where does it pop up? Whoop, the idea goes up right at the top. So whenever you want to make the audience visualize something, you want them to see concepts and imagination. So the slide has got some of these key ideas. So think of your own examples to kind of share with them that when you want the audience to kind of open up their mind and see new things and vision, this is where your hands should go. So in combination, when you have the whole body language all working together, you will have some of the parts of the speech where you want more power to come in, so you use the power zone, where you want to be doing delivery of facts, or you want to connect different things together, or you want to persuade them, you want to bring them in, you want to engage them. This is where you use the heart zone. And finally, the head zone is used when, or the idea zone is used when you want to come up with different ideas. So I hope this short mini training is useful for you when you are explaining to them about this triangle concept. After doing it, it'll be good to get them to practice. Normally what I do is I break it up into phases. So I do the power zone first, then I do the heart zone, and then I do the idea zone, so that they have a feel of it and put it together as they make the presentations. Yeah.